Have you ever noticed a subtle shift inside you? A moment when your usual thoughts, habits, and reactions feel unfamiliar? Almost like the you've always known is fading away. Right before a transformation happens, your personality starts to dissolve. You may have felt moments where you suddenly stop reacting the way you normally would. Maybe your old routines feel heavy, or familiar patterns that used to comfort you now feel strange. Most people think something is wrong when this happens, but here's what's actually occurring. This is the first stage of a profound shift in consciousness, a prelude to a quantum leap in your life. In today's video, we're going to explore why this happens, what it feels like inside your mind and nervous system, and how the principles of quantum physics and neuroscience explain this mysterious process. Inspired by the teachings of Joe Dispenza and Amit Goswami, we'll dive into the mechanics of identity dissolution and show you why this stage is not only normal, but essential. By the end of this video, you'll understand what your nervous system is doing, why your sense of self feels like it's unraveling, and how to navigate this in-between state so that you can step into your next version with clarity and confidence. This is important because most people never recognize this subtle process and resist it, delaying their transformation.
Let's start by defining what we mean by personality dissolution. Your personality is essentially a collection of habits, emotional patterns, and conditioned reactions stored in your nervous system. It's the version of yourself you've reinforced over years, sometimes decades. Right before a quantum leap, these familiar patterns begin to fade. Think of it like sand slipping through your fingers. You don't lose yourself entirely, but the old forms of you start dissolving. Here's why this matters. Your brain is wired for survival. It loves familiarity. When your old self begins to dissolve, your nervous system initially feels uncertain. There's a sense of internal instability, like a storm inside your mind. But this storm is actually preparing you for coherence. Your nervous system is being reorganized to handle a higher frequency of energy. From a neuroscience perspective, this involves neural plasticity. Your brain is rewiring itself. Old synaptic connections that defined habitual thoughts and emotional responses are weakening, while new circuits are forming to accommodate expanded perception, new habits, and elevated consciousness. Amit Goswami explains this beautifully in the context of quantum physics. Your consciousness is not just a byproduct of your brain, it actively influences your reality. Your old patterns collapsing is the brain's way of creating space for new, coherent patterns aligned with your future self. Most people experience this as discomfort. You may feel restless, anxious, or strangely detached. This is completely normal. It's like a cocoon loosening around a butterfly. The old structure must soften before the new form emerges. Now, let's bring in the quantum perspective. According to the observer effect, the act of observation influences reality. Your consciousness interacts with the probability field, collapsing some possibilities while allowing new ones to emerge. When your old identity begins to dissolve, your observation, your inner attention, is subtly shifting. The coherence in your mind signals the probability field to align with new possibilities. In other words, the old self fades precisely because you are beginning to inhabit a different reality.
Here's a metaphor to make this concrete. Imagine your personality as a river with well-defined banks. For years, the water flows within these boundaries. Suddenly, the banks start crumbling. The water spreads, exploring new terrain. Initially, this feels chaotic and frightening, but this spreading is necessary. It allows the water to flow into new channels, eventually forming a larger, more powerful river. That's exactly what happens when your personality dissolves. You may ask, does this mean I lose my identity entirely? Not at all. In fact, this is why emotional validation is important. You're not breaking, you're transitioning. Most people interpret these shifts as a problem, but in reality, it's a natural and healthy process. The key is to observe your internal experience without resistance. Let me give you a real-world example. Imagine someone who has always been reactive to criticism. Suddenly, after a series of subtle internal shifts, they notice that the old triggers no longer provoke the same emotional storm. They feel calmer, more present. The old reactive patterns are dissolving. Their nervous system is stabilizing. This is not magic. It's the natural consequence of coherence and identity restructuring happening quietly inside the body. Now, repetition is crucial here because it helps the mind grasp subtle phenomena. First, your old personality dissolves because your nervous system is rewiring. Second, your observation is influencing reality, allowing new possibilities to emerge. Third, emotional patterns fade so that higher frequency states like calm certainty, creativity, and alignment can stabilize. These three processes are interconnected, creating a feedback loop that prepares you for a quantum leap. Another way to think about it, your old self is like a worn-out software version. The system can't upgrade until the outdated programs stop running. Dissolving personality traits, habits, conditioned reactions are the outdated programs shutting down. The nervous system reorganizes to support the new operating system, your expanded, next-level self.
Now let's get practical. How do you recognize that your personality is beginning to dissolve? First, you may notice subtle detachment from old habits. Things you used to find satisfying might feel empty. Social interactions, routines, even certain thought patterns may no longer feel you. This is your nervous system signaling that it's ready for change. Second, pay attention to emotional responses. You may feel sudden waves of restlessness, anxiety, or even euphoria. These are indicators that the old neural circuits are weakening while new circuits form. Don't resist. This is completely normal, and it's actually proof that transformation is happening. Many people make the mistake of trying to force themselves back into old patterns. Most people think clinging to the old self is safe, but in reality, resistance prolongs discomfort. Instead, practice observing your feelings with neutrality. Notice thoughts and reactions without judgment. This doesn't mean passivity, it means allowing your internal system to reorganize naturally. Here's a simple step-by-step guide. Observe your reactions, notice when old habits or triggers arise, label them without judgment. Breathe and stabilize. Engage the nervous system by taking deep, slow breaths. This helps calm the body while the mind adjusts. Visualize coherence. Imagine your consciousness as a glowing orb aligning with the universe, dissolving old patterns and opening space for new ones. Detach from outcomes. Don't try to control exactly how your personality will shift. Trust that the transformation is aligned with your higher frequency. Affirm transition internally. Instead of affirming externally, internally recognize, I am evolving. My old self is dissolving to make way for new alignment. You may have noticed that these steps are more internal than external. That's crucial. Effortlessness is key here. Trying to push or manipulate the process can create reactivity in the nervous system, which blocks coherence. The real power comes from alignment, observation, and patience. Emotional validation is also important. You may feel lost, confused, or even scared as your old identity fades. This is completely natural. It is profound because the in-between state is the fertile ground for your next-level self to emerge. You are not broken. You are evolving. Let's dive deeper. What's happening at the energy and frequency level? As your old personality dissolves, your personal frequency begins to shift. Energy that was previously stuck in old emotional loops begins to circulate more freely. This creates a new resonance with higher probability outcomes in the quantum field. From a spiritual perspective, this is your consciousness reorganizing reality. Your observer state,
The part of you that witnesses becomes more coherent. This allows a timeline shift. Old outcomes lose their grip and new possibilities emerge. You may notice synchronistic events, sudden clarity, or coincidences guiding you toward a new direction. Identity transformation isn't just about changing habits, it's about changing who you are at the core. Joe Dispenza often emphasizes that once the old self dissolves, your body and mind can integrate new patterns effortlessly. The nervous system stabilizes into a higher state, emotional charge decreases, and calm certainty becomes accessible. A metaphor here is powerful. Think of your consciousness as a radio tuner. Previously, you were stuck on an old frequency, hearing the same static patterns. Dissolving personality traits allow you to retune to a new station, one that broadcasts entirely new experiences and possibilities. What this means is that every subtle detachment you feel from your old self is actually your internal signal aligning with a higher frequency. It's why some people suddenly feel different without changing their external environment. The shift is happening inside first, and reality outside follows. By embracing this process consciously, you accelerate your evolution. Instead of resisting or fearing the dissolving self, you participate intentionally. Observe the old patterns fade, feel the nervous system recalibrate, and allow your consciousness to collapse probability fields in favor of your desired reality. This is the secret mechanism of manifestation at the quantum level.
When your personality begins to dissolve, it's the first sign that a quantum leap is approaching. Your old self fades, your nervous system stabilizes, and your consciousness becomes coherent enough to influence the probability field. This process is natural, essential, and completely normal. You may have felt confusion, restlessness, or detachment, but this is actually evidence that transformation is underway. Remember, your old self is dissolving to make room for a more aligned, higher frequency version of you. Most people miss this stage because they resist it, but by observing and aligning, you can flow through it effortlessly. Here's what I want you to take away. Trust the process. Observe without judgment and allow the in-between state to unfold. The dissolution of your personality is not the end, it's the threshold to your next level self. If you found this insight valuable, subscribe and stay tuned, because in our next video, we'll explore how to consciously integrate these new patterns into your daily life, amplifying your manifestation power and quantum evolution. You are evolving, and the universe is ready to meet the new you.